So there's this idea of narrow artificial intelligence and general artificial intelligence. And I suppose like what we mean nowadays is more the general type of intelligence. But for a long time, we've been basically getting inputs and performing some function on those inputs and getting outputs. So that's basically what a narrow artificial intelligence is able to do. It's able to take a task that a human does and then do something with that task, some calculation, perform a calculation and generate an output, which we've been doing for a long time since we started sort of creating computers, even
like calculators.
Yeah, in the like 19th century we were able to do that. Not to a very high level, and it didn't really look anything like modern day computing, but essentially it's the same thing. But now when we talk about artificial intelligence, we generally mean general AI that's able to take various tasks or various types of inputs and then generate a more sophisticated output to the level that a human might be able to do it. Sometimes slightly below, sometimes slightly above.
Yeah, I think it depends on the task.
Depends on the human as well.
The human.
That's effectively what AI is. Obviously, then it gets very, very complicated because once you delve more into the history of AI, you discover that there's a lot of different theories of how it should work and what intelligence actually is. I think until sort of actually relatively recently, we've been quite reliant on calculating. So just computers being able to perform calculations, us coding in algorithms to figure out, to do a task quicker than a human. But then I think it was not that long ago actually. Obviously computing power has got so
exponentially,
it's no longer constrained. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the developments in AI, because I think it was a processing power problem. Do you have enough processing power to actually take loads of enough data in? Because I mean, it's amazing like what the human brain does. Like we take in so much data every second, but we're barely aware of it. Now, when we take in that data through evolution and stuff like that, our brain is developed to understand what and interpret what's entering our eyes, so it can filter things well. And I think part of AI research is working out what data is relevant and what to churn out, and that's an amazingly difficult thing to do. And I think it's still the problem. Still the problem that people are trying to solve is like what data is irrelevant. Like whenever I've talked to friends who work in the field, so like Russell, and it's always about like we've got a lot of access to data, but how do you select what's important? Like because they say, okay, we can very easily, like machine learning and stuff like that makes, to them it's not the difficult part. The difficult part is actually deciding what data,
what's useful, what's meaningful.
Yeah. To the problem that you're trying to solve. So a general AI would have to contend with that. It's got to, like, no matter what the input is and what data set it's drawing from, it's got to interpret what's relevant to the problem that it's trying to solve.
Yeah, I guess that's the difference between an input-output and AI.
And that's something that like humans can do, well, most humans can do relatively easily, is that they can decide what's important, what's not important, better than most computers.
I
think there's like a scale though, because it depends on the human, it depends on the AI tool that you use.
I think, I don't know if it's true or not, I think current AI I've heard has like the intelligence of an 8-year-old. Is that right?
I'd say it depends what you're measuring intelligence
I
on.
think they were measuring it on ChatGPT.
Yeah, but like
Obviously
what test
knowledge,
did they give?
I can't remember, it was a passing thing that I watched.
Yeah, I think in terms of like information held by the AI, it's got to be a million times more than an 8-year-old has in their brain. But what can they do
intelligence-wise,
with it? Yeah.
rather than like knowledge,
Yeah. Yeah.
the way that it can interpret and figure out,
Yeah.
like, to get to an answer.
Yeah. I think as AI develops, we're going to see what it struggles with more and what skills it kind of picks up easily, and those things that AI finds more difficult will be almost like what we learn about humans is more valuable, like things like reading between the lines and, you know,
The inference.
yeah, like, you know, like the tests they give you to like make sure you're a human, like those are getting more and more complicated as you know, AI develops, but they're becoming more and more to do with like inferring and like reading between the lines. And I think that will be, as the kind of race continues between AI getting better and better at what it does and humans just reacting to that and understanding, you know, what it is that we have in terms of skills, those, yeah, subtle reading between the lines type skills will be the ones that we will realise are really valuable and unique to humans.
I don't think we're that far off that.
Yeah, I can see it now already in a way.
Next 5 years or so,
Yeah.
it's developing at a very scary rate.
I know plenty of people who have problem with inference skills.
Yeah, that's what
to be
was-
honest, that's
Yeah.
the thing. Because I think it's more like a little change in intelligence actually makes a massive. That's kind of the interesting part is if you think about it, if you get someone with a IQ of 120 and then you compare them to someone with an IQ of 100, there's like a massive difference in what they're able to do, like ultimately, and what they're able to learn. If you just take a little bit of a difference, so imagine a computer that has an IQ of like 180, that's actually way more intelligence than any human probably alive.
Yeah.
Right. And that computer's going to be able to do, you know, replace anyone
Yeah.
in any
Yeah.
task.
It's kind of
Yeah,
scary.
the better and better it gets at, you know, replicating what it has in front of it, you won't be able to have a human that outsmarts an AI, because if an AI can just replicate whatever it sees, then it will just replicate that human. Like, if it's just constantly keeping up or surpassing whatever
Will
we
be
can
surpassing,
do,
yeah.
then that's what it will be.
But I think the test is how well it can generate knowledge, or
Yeah.
generate new knowledge.
Yeah.
So like, I'll give you an example. If you have, let's just take a really basic example, like an ape and a human, right? That ape can only really copy what the human does, right? And they're not that, like, if you think IQ wise, they're not a hell of a lot of difference between an ape and a human. Yeah, there's a massive difference in terms of what they can do.
Yeah.
And if you take an AI that's like just twice as intelligent as us, that's like an insane level of intelligence. They'd be able to, like, you've seen, I don't know if you've seen any of those reports about like AIs creating their own languages and stuff like that.
Not the language one. I've seen other.
Oh, I've seen one that an AI just started speaking a language that it wasn't part of its data set. Just started speaking like Greek or something out of
Yes.
nowhere.
I've seen one where it took, I think it was like Sanskrit or something, I don't know, or Gujarati, can't remember. One of those Indian languages. And then it could, using very, very little data, so I think they gave it like 2 lines, they intuited the language from those 2 lines or whatever. I think that's the scary part, is the fact that it can create new knowledge just out like that, even with a limited data set. I mean, we've seen, like, you know, they've had those in some 11 plus papers, like the sort of hard, the super selectives, like Manchester Grammar School and stuff like that. They have like these tasks where they give like the child a subset of the language, and then the child has to work out like the rules of the language from
It's
that.
kind of like when you have the non-verbal questions, which have like four letter codes for non-verbal.
Mm.
Like A is triangle, B is square, C is pentagon,
Yeah,
and then they're going to go D is,
yeah,
and that's one of like 4 elements. But
Mm.
they have to make that leap.
yeah. But then,
Isn't that pattern recognition?
yeah, it's to
Yeah,
do with pattern
but the
recognition, yeah.
most of those questions they give you all the information, but there's a couple that don't, and it requires them. Remember, they're like 9-10 years old. It requires them to make a leap in knowledge
Yeah.
to think, okay, well that if that's how this language works, that means this must be this.
Yeah.
So currently, Chat GPT 4 has an IQ of 114.
Yeah, like just increase that 20 points makes
Yeah,
absolutely massive difference in terms of what it's able to do.
it's only growing exponentially as well.
Yeah, it will. Like 114 is higher than most humans. So, like,
Is it?
yeah, it's way higher than most humans. Like the average IQ is like 100.
I'd say the
I thought
good
mine
thing.
was like 100 and... Well, the test that I've done said mine was like 140 something. Is that right?
100 is average.
I
Well,
don't know.
it was at the time that they first.
I don't know. I'd say no. 140 is like genius.
I'm sure
Right.
I've done a test
I
that
don't
said
think you're a
that.
genius. Unfortunately, yeah.
Although it might be because they're so used to doing non-verbal and that's what it bases on, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
training.
Yeah.
we know this stuff already, so maybe
Yeah,
that's
I
why.
would say as well with the IQ test or any other test that we put on an AI, it's a human designed measurement in a
Yeah.
way. Like, I'm thinking that when we look at artificial intelligence and how it's progressing and how it's doing it, we're always going to assess it on our terms and say, oh, well, it's not as intelligent as me, so then it's this or that. But actually, maybe it's just a different playing field that we shouldn't really be putting, equating to the same. Like, for example, like with dogs, on some measurements, we could say, oh, we've got much more intelligence as dogs when it comes to language or communication. But when it comes to like sense of smell, they'd say, well, you're really dumb. Like,
Yeah.
you don't even know the difference between that smell and that smell from a mile away.
Mm.
And I know how to run home with my eyes closed just by sniffing my way there. So that makes me really intelligent. But we kind of see ourselves at the top of a pyramid of deciding what's important about intelligence and what's not.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's true.
Well, I guess there's a difference between that's like fluid intelligence versus there's like what's the opposite of fluid?
Concrete.
Concrete. Yeah. So that plays into what I was saying earlier about how you've got narrow artificial intelligence. So, for instance, the old chess computers like Deep Blue was able to beat Garry Kasparov, and then from that point, like no one can really beat. Like if you took the top level chess engine and played it against a human, like the human wouldn't win.
Because
Like,
it learns every
predictably.
time, doesn't it?
No. Like this is even before it was able to. Sort
No, the
of-
original, the first.
Yeah, that was just as long as it knows the rules of chess. But then, since they've developed like, what was Google's DeepMind project? I don't know. They got AlphaGo. It initially played Go and then it beat the best Go player in the world, and then it did chess, and now it can beat those old sort of calculative models. So, because it can just learn the new rules of the game. ChatGPT is actually really bad at chess. Like it makes up its own rules and stuff like that. Like I saw a game
It's
that it
creativity.
tried to- and it just was like it just created a pawn out of nowhere. It was just like I'm just gonna make a pawn there, or I'm gonna make a. So it doesn't really understand the game fully, but like there are some chess engines that exist that take those that use those language models, or I don't know, not really a language model, more like
Just the rules.
takes loads and loads of games basically, and then understands like the best sort of combinations to play, that kind of thing. I don't really know how it works. Pretty insane. Thanks for watching this clip of the Education Lounge podcast. If you want to watch some other clips, click here. If you want to watch the full episode, click down here. Please like and subscribe as it really helps our channel.
The Education Lounge Podcast.